well-being tends to be divided into three sectors: access to health care, quality of care, and healthcare expenditures. As a matter of fact, in any country, to assess the effectiveness, the performance effectiveness of the healthcare sector, you need to tap into these three. So in any country, when you say they have a good healthcare system, it's not necessarily that they capture this, they capture these. These are the action indicators. Action indicators because, again, what they do is they lend themselves to public policy action. Public policy action. Access to care, coverage for health care, unmet needs for medical care, unmet needs for dental care, and so forth. Quality care, avoidable hospital admissions, diabetes cares, and so forth. Healthcare expenditures, you know. So these things, right, affect this. But in order to be comprehensive, not everything that is impacted by public policy tends to affect those outcomes. So this is where this other thing comes in, which is non-medical determinants of health, like things that you don't have much control over, and you have to acknowledge and identify those. Tobacco consumption, alcohol consumption, fruit and vegetable consumptions among adults, obesity. I mean, of course, certain things you can do, and actually you can, well, we can argue that some of this connect with that, but nevertheless, this is something that you have less control over, and therefore it kind of it affects this in a way that may not necessarily be related to those action indicators. But what's beautiful about this model, this framework, is now we've got three main sets of action indicators. Now we can be a little bit more specific on what impacts those three dimensions of action indicators. And here the OECD spells out healthcare workforce and healthcare activities. These things affect access to care, quality of care, healthcare expenditure, and the like. And then, of course, there are these demographic shifts that impact those things. So healthcare workforce would be things like the overall number of doctors that are available out there, and they can break things down by age, sex, category, and so forth. Medical graduate examples of indicators of healthcare activities would be, again, things like medical technologies that are out there, and again, those demographic shifts impact it. So again, what's beautiful about this is that we have a framework in which we're not only talking about outcome indicators, but we have action indicators, and this particular OECD framework allows you to connect the dots. Yeah, that's right. So, and I have to finish, but hold on, I have two other slides, but I'm not going to go through them.
But we have a printout with them.
Oh, okay. So here we have a situation in which, well, let's do the same thing with something like employment well-being, right? We can actually come up with another framework that does exactly the same thing, in which we say, okay, well, income is an outcome, yes. We can talk about GDP and so forth, but we have to essentially spell out what are the things that we don't have much control over, and yes, we need to measure those. But again, comparable to the OECD framework, we can talk about access to the labor market, the quality of jobs, expenditures, you know, on economic development. These are the things that ultimately affect economic well-being, right? And what are those things that influence those three major dimensions? And again, we can spell those out. This kind of framework allows you to, again, connect the dots.
Why don't we take a couple of questions? Thank you, Joe.
Question for you. Going back to the other slide, in terms of
To the health, well-being.
the health well-being, that is an extremely narrow view of determinants of health. What
The
happens?
OECD framework?
Yeah.
But
What happened to access to public transport, access to affordable housing, access to education, which all influence these health status indicators on the side?
But that's no problem. What you can do is you can feed those other indicators in this framework. If you're not happy with those, and add or delete whatever you like.
But isn't the OECD's
That's the only
framework?
thing, right?
How do they not take into account the other broader determinants of health? The social determinants?
Yeah. It's a valid question. Every model has its severe limitations. No question about it. This one is already very rich, very elaborate, but it does exclude those very things that you're talking about, that we know to be directly related to health in this case.
So when it comes to transportation, maybe you can add it, where would you add that? How does that fit?
Access to health, access to care. It's-
Access?
Yes, the third column up at the top.
So,
It is so important, so for them not to be there with
Yeah,
the real
it's very obvious.
okay, access to this
But
transportation.
the conceptual model itself, showing the relationship between the inputs, the throughputs, the outputs, and the social investments, this is extremely valuable. But within that, you tinker with it to make it fit.
Yeah, just to add on that, another obvious thing that is missing is environmental factors. I mean, air pollution, water pollution, things
Well,
like
that's
that.
the
Number
uncontrollable.
of sun hours that you don't get depressed. I mean, this all has an effect on health, right?
Right, so you add those here.
Yeah, we should add those here.
Yeah, into environmental conditions.
Particularly because if you're going to do community planning and using a model like this, it's like all these factors are just externalities, you know, we don't account for them, we don't understand the link to them, so, you know, it kind of really concerns me that the OECD would be considered like that.
Right, but there's also something to be said for parsimony. If you can't, you can't take into account everything because the model becomes overwhelming and then it doesn't become workable.
But we know theoretically that they are determinants. It's not like it's a thought, it's proven, it's evidential.
Other comments, or questions? And just be terribly mindful of time and so on.
Is there empirical work to corroborate these associations and how important they are? And then if you have empirical work, you may know how much you are missing in explaining the outcomes with the inputs you have.
There is some publication related to the OECD.
At the empirical level, or this is basically
No, at the
conceptual?
empirical level. There is, this is the conceptual piece, but OECD always has backups in terms of, you know, that's one of the things those OECD is known for, is its rich empirical data that are available to support its work. So they're there, they're on, I know from the Director General.
And a short question to you. If you were able to incorporate 3 additional variables to the index, and let's suppose that the information is available, what variables or dimensions would you incorporate now?
Variables or sectors?
Or sectors or something, additional information?
I would include
Which is
the
not there.
family as a sector, a population group, the family itself, and a way of measuring family stability. And there are obvious things like divorce rates, family violence, and so on. But the data aren't collectible across all nations. And that was in the early model and was excluded. But that's one that I always had hoped to be able to put back in. So that would be the major one, I think. But covering 10 sectors is really quite a lot.
Ready to move on?
I think we have to.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. And you have.
So, now it's my turn. So first introduce myself. So I'm a psychologist and economist. I'm presenting here a project that we do together with the Community Wellbeing Institute based in Seoul, Korea. So that was an idea that we developed 2 years ago at the ISQOLS conference in Berlin. And so that's here more like to explain the project itself, but especially to explain the state of the art of the project right now, where we are, and what the future prospects are. And so just, I think it's easier when I just show a video that we produced for that, so just to explain the basic idea at the beginning, and so just to give you a feeling for what that project is about.
Even in today's globalized and individualized world, it matters where you live. Better communities can sustainably change our larger society and improve individual lives. But what is a good community? And how can we enhance community well-being? The answer to these questions will differ from place to place, but nevertheless, it is possible to measure well-being in different communities to find the common characteristics. By collecting information on the various aspects of community well-being, governments and communities will be able to evaluate the actual needs of a community. The data collected are displayed online in a Community Wellbeing Atlas, providing insights on community well-being levels in different places. Are there communities that have significantly higher levels of well-being than others? And what can we learn from them? The Community Wellbeing Atlas is the scientific basis for developing policies that are focused on building better communities where people can live healthier, happier, and more meaningful lives. Our findings provide the necessary information for both citizens and governments to determine what a community really needs or wants. Would you like to share your experience and contribute to making your city a better place to live? You can do so by participating in our international study for building better communities. Community-wellbeing-atlas.com.
This is in the end like just the basic template, so that can be used like to attract participants. And so it's just like the basic idea, like just to explain the project itself. So this is available in Korean and German and English so far, so just like this video can be adapted then for different cities. And so the main idea what you saw is that's the idea is to build in the end like just a more detailed database for community well-being, which is based on a more detailed measurement model than what was like other ideas before. So the idea is to differentiate first of all like clearly between community well-being and individual well-being, and so on the community well-being level to like to put in also like existing data sources on objective community well-being, to measure based on a questionnaire from the Community Wellbeing Institute subjective community well-being, as well as intersubjective community well-being. On the individual well-being way, it's the same way, also to add like objective markers, in the end like biological markers, so just to measure individual subjective well-being. Then to have subjective individual well-being, that's to be divided in the end in like general measurements based on the OECD guidelines, so just for measuring subjective well-being. On the other side, what we saw is it's to integrate to zoom into daily life by app-based measurements, and to get information on people's time use, and what we call it like on people's happiness time use, at the end how you perceive also like the time that you spend. And on the other side, to even ask people like just with an app, like just in the moment itself, just how they feel right now, what they do, with whom and where, and experience sampling right away. So that's kind of the measurement model that we applied in the end in the Community Wellbeing app, which is based on the happiness analyzers tool from our institute, just where we integrated in the end this kind of metrics to build a basic app that we can apply then for different studies. The goal, what you saw in the video, is in the end like just to really make also comparative analysis in the longer term, but especially to zoom into daily life and not just have two abstract measurements of community well-being and subjective well-being. And so the other point when we do app-based measurements is that you can also get like GPS data, and so like this you can map in the end just things to see where people live in certain environments compared to other environments, and then to zoom in and understand things just on a more sensitive level to explain more and to help policymakers also to make more well-being-oriented policies. So one pilot, so that was kind of like the idea in 2014, 2015. So then we developed like these tools in the end first, the basic app, developed like a website for this, developed in the end just like the measurement model. And then there was a first pilot, so together with the TEDx community in Frankfurt, so just where we just collected some data app-based first for a pilot in Frankfurt, and I will just quickly show you a screencast of that app that that explains you the method, I think, in a bit more detail. Was it session 3? Screencast explains you kind of, so people download this app, and so from there on they do first like a general questionnaire. So it's a community well-being questionnaire, asking for different indicators, and on the other side they're then afterwards also doing a subjective well-being questionnaire. So about like 10-minute questionnaire, and after this they do like one-time direct reconstruction method. So they define in the end like an episode of their day to reconstruct their day, and then in different answering options tell what they did in this episode, where and with whom. And so they do this for one day, and then they reconstruct and try to think about how they felt during this episode. So they do this for one day, like one-time questionnaire, community well-being, subjective well-being, and then one-time a diary, and then it's an important part. So like it's here the part that people get first the feeling, no, they did something social, so in the end for their community to give that feedback, but then they can decide for themselves that they're interested to track in the end their happiness in a more detailed way. By this then on the one side they get information for themselves, but also to give more detailed information that for the community and for policymakers, that there's a richer database for decisions. And so that's in the end what is then proposed. After you do the survey, that the app can in the end be adapted so that you quit the survey, or you do a basic question version where you do like 6 more times like a diary, or an exclusive version where you do 6 more times like a diary, plus 4 times a day you're being asked like just how you feel right now, what you do with whom and where, what you see here, which is kind of like a notification. So where you're just asking and rating how you feel, and then again what you saw before and answering options, what you do right now, where and with whom. So that's kind of like the basic version of that app, so that we applied in the end and for different ways to attract participants. We have a website template that we can now like just easily adapt for different cities. We adapted the video that you saw in the end for Frankfurt. And in the end we got some first data, so the main result out of this was that living in the city center, so just in Frankfurt is quite pricey. That's new information, but the main thing is we were being able to see in the end in the time use data like really things that you would figure. So people that live in the city center need to work also longer, so they need to work longer hours but need to commute less. On the other side, people that live in the end outside of the city center need to commute more, but they also work a bit less because they don't need to make the same amount of money. So that's kind of like where we saw like just not in a representative way, but first like in the first data set that the idea itself really works out. And so we did other pilots like this in 2016. So for example in Bristol, in the United Kingdom, together with Werner Brouwer at the University in West Lafayette. So there's something running together with the mayor there. In New Jersey, in Kempten, there's a study now going to start. In my hometown in Hansen, Germany, we start something. Another town in Germany, in Herten, and there's a time use researcher in Santiago de Chile that's also going to try to adapt this. So for general pilots. But the main thing is that it's not that easy. It's not that you can just like put in the end like a video out there, a website out there, and put an app in the App Store and you get just a bunch of data. So there needs to be a clear sampling plan. And so that's what we see also, like just when we just do it too simple and we don't sample in the right way and don't really figure out the details for a certain city, so then it does not really work. And there needs to be also reward plan when we really want to build like in the end long-term panels. And so for reward options, we were just giving it a lot of thought. So there are in the end like 4 options that you have to reward people for participating in the panel. The one thing that we have here is that it's individual intrinsic reward by in the end tracking your own happiness, and by just getting information for this. People seem to like to track themselves, but we see with devices like Fitbit and so on, and more and more. There's a socially intrinsic reward by sharing information in the end with policymakers and by just doing something for the community. There could be an individual extrinsic reward by just paying people or giving them material rewards. And but the main thing is here it's about community well-being. So like this, our thought was to just have a socially extrinsic reward by donation budget, to not give people money, to give them in the end like donation rewards that they can donate in the end for community projects, which seems for us like a way more sustainable way in the end for rewarding participants. So that's in the end, last slides to sum up. So that's the project that we do now in Wuppertal, a 300,000 inhabitants city in Germany. So where this is kind of a best practice that we prepare right now, so for building really a representative app-based long-term panel. So when here we were first had in contact with the local university, sustainability professor there, Professor Schneiderwind. He had contact to the mayor, with the mayor and the professor, we were going in the end to the biggest local bank to get like funding for the rewards, and to the biggest electricity supplier to have in the end like a good funding basis and a good marketing basis on really like promoting a study like this. And so in January 2017 it will start, and here it's not that people just do it for free. So in the end, the first 1,000 users will get each time when they finish just the general survey of the community well-being questionnaire and the subjective well-being questionnaire, they get €5, like $6, $7 in the end for doing this. The main thing is they get this directly in the end, you answer in the end the questionnaire, and directly afterwards you're just being displayed different projects. For example, you rated that you're not that satisfied with the health situation or with the air quality, and you see a project in your community that you can donate in the end directly your funding to. And so that's kind of the idea to do this. The whole thing with the diary is something that's still like just that people can do. They don't get rewarded extra for this. It's just like an intrinsically reward. And so in the end, it's already like signed for this. That's there will be like 2 times a workshop. So like one time after half a year with the mayor and the public. Again, like just after 1 year, then completely, and it's going to be displayed in a dashboard for the public online, as well as for the mayor, for city planners in the end to use in the end this information for policy. And from 2018 on, it's then going to be a scale up to 5,000 people. And what we need to know is that when we do something app-based, it's for younger children as well as for elderly people. We can't really get that much data. So there will be interviews like added to get really a representative sample. And it will be connected when that's going to be funded again to a project from the OECD, a WebCozy project, which is has the claim statistics for everyone to really make sure that it's scalable in the long term for OECD nations. So
let's stop
Yeah.
and let people ask questions which may respond then to.
Okay, so that's kind of the last slide, but I think that's also good to read just and you're free to ask questions.
Questions or comments?
So how do you get this issue into subjective well-being?
So the subjective well-being is an idea from the Community Wellbeing Institute, which is in the end the point that you rate, for example, like the health situation. So just in your city, so the health services, you rate that for your personal satisfaction, and you rate that, you evaluate that in general for the residents. So like kind of you think about like just for others, apart from yourself, do you think that's a good thing, like in general also for poorer people or for richer people? It's kind of difficult and we still need to figure out a bit for this, but it seems for us like just as a construct quite meaningful to also like figure out this part how you rate in the end your city and not just your personal satisfaction.
That I guess you may call it a commercial, right? At the very beginning, you know, how do you use it? You actually, is that a television commercial or what?
So like in the pilot so far, that was just like being like put on Facebook and like just on, yeah, in the end it's like just general stuff. But so like for example in Wuppertal, it's going to be now like just also with the local TV channels, so that's going to be linked and so on. Like it's in the end like something when the quality is okay that you can then also just put in TV and you don't have extra costs, right? So that just then once produced, I think that's something important to mention. So like these are in the end like all like tools that we have produced, and they are really easy and without like much funding to adapt now, like for other cities, for other studies. That was kind of the whole idea to really build like these modules to make sure that it's then like easily scalable.
Nice work.
It was mentioned in an earlier session that a lot of the technology involved simply is not available for the vast majority of people. And I wonder if there are other questions or comments that are related to that, because this is very technology dependent in order to collect the data.
Otherwise, they also something to invest in.
Another question. Much of the improvement stuff is very much driven by what we call hedonic well-being, right? And you know, when we're talking about quality of life or subjective well-being, there's a lot of other what you might call macro measures, be they mnemonic measures, measures, related to life satisfaction, which is a lot more cognitive than hedonic. Have you taken that into account? Are you planning to?
So like in the end, like in the subjective well-being questionnaire, it's like based on the OECD guidelines, which they differentiate in the end like life regulation with the mnemonic and hedonic. So like this, like there we have these measures. So like that's all in. That's for example, like you can, I think you can still like put their construction method as well as experience sampling method more like in an hedonic area. So like just that's definitely true. Like we did not put like additional indicators in, for example, for the data construction method so far, like asking if it was like a meaningful episode, for example. So that's something we don't use that much, like kind of in this layers. So like just there we are more on a bit more hedonic approach, while like for the general questionnaire we are on more with constructs.
Rather than taking, pull off just your question, I want to ask whether or not Willem and his team from the Netherlands is
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the last presentation.
Yeah.
And we need to move to Willem.
All right.
Please, because we only have about 10 minutes now.
All right.
Thank you, Kai.
Yeah.
Very,
Do
very
you
much.
know how to put the presentation on?
Yeah. Sure that you're coming. That's, she has to get to. She has to get to receive the award, and then she has to go. But every year she goes. I wonder about that.
I'm finished.
You're finished.
Ready. I know I'm not finished, I'm ready.
You're just starting. Forgive me for, please.
No. Yeah, so thank you very much. I wanted to start with 3 apologies, one of which is that I arrived yesterday, so I'm still a bit jet laggy, so I'm sorry. Another one is that I'm
You're in
actually
good company.
not really somebody who generally does empirical work, and this is an empirical paper. I generally, see, I come from a philosopher's background. So yeah, and related to that, I've never really done 12-minute presentations, and apparently it's down to 10.
10.
I feel like I wasted already 10%. All right, so my paper is called What Constitutes Wellbeing? And so it's a study together with some health economists from the Erasmus University.